This is a good thing because if we were not out of body, at least to a certain degree, our body would act out everything we encounter in a dream, which would be dangerous to our health, to be quite frank. In dreaming, because our consciousness is dissociated from our body, the aspect of our brain that controls motor function is disabled.
I didn't do that.
Even though it feels like you're dreaming all night long, that's just your brain's perspective of linear time. What's actually occurring is that as you go to sleep, you are withdrawing your consciousness back to source perspective. Upon your return to physical consciousness, you must enable your consciousness to pass through and become the vibrational equivalent of each of these higher dimensional realities. When you run into a dreamscape, you are most often in the fifth or sixth dimensional reality.
Right now.
And as you assume those frequencies, they are downloaded, and your brain then goes about the task of translating those downloads. Another way of saying this is the vibration is being downloaded and translated so the mind can make sense of the vibration, and we call these translations dreams. True dreams are a direct reflection of what is going on with you vibrationally. When you go to sleep, you are not in the process of actively creating a reality, but the things that you have been in the process of creating are still active within you. The things you've been thinking and the feelings you've been feeling in your waking life and what manifests in your reality are always a match. Your dreams are always a vibrational match to what you've been thinking and feeling as well. In fact, dreams are a preview of pre-manifested reality. They are a fabulous tool for pre-manifestational awareness. Anything you focus on or pay attention to could manifest as a dream. Because you have no resistance in your sleep, that's what sleep does. It enables you to release resistance. You're not condemning yourself. You're not trying to convince yourself that reality is different than it actually is. What happens is you are capable of seeing reality, or should I say your vibrational reality, exactly as it is. In dream time, your subconscious mind, things you don't know that you don't know, can be revealed to you because of your absence of resistance in the sleep state. This is why so many famous psychologists knew that sleep and dreams were like a window to the subconscious mind. Sleepers dream about what they encounter in real life, especially emotional concerns. However, in your dreams, these vibrations play out as exact reflections. This means your mind will choose structure for these dreams that is the closest vibrational match to the vibration itself. The expectations, and therefore beliefs, in dreamscapes are different than they are in waking states, which is why they manifest in this way. In other words, in real life, it's not an expectation that a unicorn is going to show up. In fact, it's a belief that they can't, so they won't. But that same expectation doesn't apply in the dream world, in the dreamscape. And so your vibration can show up exactly. That means if a unicorn is the closest vibrational match to whatever vibration you're holding, it can show up in the dreamscape where it would not have shown up in your real life, tangible reality. Another example of how your mind will choose a structure that is an exact reflection of the vibration that you're currently holding can be seen through the following scenario. Let's say that your boss makes you feel super uncomfortable and totally powerless. Every time he enters the office, you want to avoid the guy. In dream life, the closest match to the actual feeling that you feel relative to your boss may be you trying to avoid getting eaten by an alligator. So you will dream about an alligator having no idea that this alligator symbolically represents your boss. In waking life, you may not be willing to own up to just how afraid you are of your boss. You may be tensing against the awareness of that fear by thinking it's normal to feel bad about authority, or by just trying to avoid him at all costs. But this dream exists to help you own up to what you are unwilling to own up to. So what purpose does this preview serve? In dream time, like we have just said, you get to see your vibrations played out exactly. Played out being the key word. Everything in this universe is designed for expansion. Sleep is no different. The human body is a tool for expansion, and it's very efficient at that task. So what's happening while you're sleeping is that you are becoming aware of what you have going on in your pre-manifestational reality, what's about to manifest in your life, so that you can make amends. Life is a learning hologram that facilitates universal expansion. This is the function of the perception of linear time and space. Dreaming helps, therefore, to incorporate memory, solve problems, and process emotions. This is why when people dream about a task they have been doing in waking life, they will wake up and be able to perform the task better. There are two very distinct phases of sleep. Scientists would call this non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Non-REM sleep applies to the past, whereas REM sleep applies to the future. In non-REM dreaming, we are processing the past. We are using the past to learn from it in a way that's going to benefit the future. Now, in REM cycle, what we are doing is we are making the connection between that past and some change or alteration we want to make so as to create a different future for ourselves. We are in the creation simulation phase of sleep, whereby we take what we learned and processed in non-REM, and then we move with it into the future to create something new. We problem solve. We try to connect the past with the future in a way that benefits our progression. We are rehearsing creating our reality. For example, in non-REM sleep, we may be dreaming about skiing. Then, when we enter the REM cycle, we might dream that we get caught in an avalanche and we're stuck and trapped. And of course, that feeling of being stuck and trapped may be a reflection of some circumstance in our day-to-day life, maybe the way that we feel it in our own home. And we're going to work through, within that construct of the avalanche and being trapped in that avalanche, a way to break free from it. And by doing that vibrationally, we actually are teaching ourselves how to become untrapped so that that serves our waking life, so that we can affect our feeling of trappedness in our waking life and become more free. Nightmares, more so than any other kind of dream, are simulated rehearsals of threat so that we will be prepared to survive if we continue to encounter a like threat in our waking life. When you are dreaming, you are interacting mostly, like I said before, with the fifth and sixth dimensional realities. What does that mean? It means that while you're in those dimensional realities, you will be interacting with, quite often, beings or thought forms which vibrate at a fifth or sixth dimensional frequency. So yes, your dreamscapes can be a place where you interact with spirit beings. When you are having a genuine dream, what is happening is that you are out of body interacting with your own thoughtscapes, your own vibrational reality, which is showing up symbolically and full of meaning, so that you may use it to facilitate your own expansion. And of course, it may benefit you for your guides to interact with you in these constructs. It's been a scientific debate for years upon years about whether dreams have meaning or about whether dreams are just the result of random impulses going off in your brain. But I'm going to tell you from my perspective, dreams always have meaning, 100%. And there is a reason why we can interpret this meaning symbolically, especially across cultures. It's because people, because they have a very similar vibration, tend to associate things with certain things. For example, all people may associate earthquakes with tragedy, insecurity, instability, and powerlessness. And so, dreaming of an earthquake may symbolically mean tragedy, instability, insecurity, and powerlessness is something that one is encountering in their life. It may mean this for all people, regardless of what culture they grew up in. So why has it worked for so many cultures to interpret dreams in this symbolic way with high degree of accuracy as it applies to prophecy? It's like I said before, your dreams are a preview of your manifested reality. They're, in essence, a pre-manifestational dimensional reality. So let's pretend you dream of an earthquake, which is the vibration of tragedy, insecurity, and all of those types of vibrations. That would make you a vibrational match, wouldn't, to experiencing those things. So if somebody who is to interpret that dream said, you're about to experience a loss or a tragedy, all that would have been happening is that they would have seen that dream, which is a preview to your pre-manifestational reality, and they would be telling you what you're currently a match to today. If you want to know about your overall vibration in life, take a look at themes, especially repetitive dreams. So let's take a look at the dreams you mostly have. Let's say that in all of them, you end up completely alone, or people don't even notice you. Alone, therefore, is a theme in your vibrational reality. Maybe you're constantly running for your life. That may mean that you feel unsafe in your waking life, because danger is a continual theme in your thoughtscapes. Or you may fly in many of your dreams. And assuming this isn't just your mind's perception of movement out of body, that could mean that in waking life you feel free or hold a strong desire to escape from pressure. We have to remember that desire is a very strong vibration within you. And so it is common, of course, if dreams are pre-manifestational reality, that you would live through or play out many of your desires if they're strong enough in your thoughtscapes. Many people do not remember their dreams. Most often this is because the ego is involved in some kind of denial relative to its actual vibrational state. Most often the subconscious mind. Very rarely, beings who have gone through an enlightenment experience can also stop remembering dreams or even stop really having them. Because in that peaceful state, that is the result of releasing resistance entirely, that process of expansion ceases to occur, and so dreaming loses its function. But most often, the higher your frequency becomes, the easier it becomes to remember dreams, because the translation between those higher dimensional realities and these lower dimensional realities is easier when the frequencies are closer. Sort of like it's easier to turn your radio dial just 2 degrees instead of 18 degrees. So what are some things you can do with your dreams, seeing as how I've just sold you on the idea that they're so incredibly important? The first is, I want you to start keeping a dream journal. The minute that you wake up, write down any details that you can remember about the dreams you've had the previous night. Pay attention to how you feel about the things that you're experiencing in your dream. The way you feel is probably your best bet at figuring out the meaning behind these particular dreams, or especially what these things in your dream symbolically represent. But my personal favorite way to interact with dreams is in fact the most accurate way of deciphering them. It's to engage in a perception experience. Begin by writing down your dream in present tense, as if it was all playing out right here and now. So instead of saying, I went here, you say, I'm going here. Then what you do is that you go into the perspective, or you become the perspective of every significant thing within that dream. You explore and express your perspective as if it were taking place in present tense. For example, let's say that I had a dream about an alligator in a swamp, and by that swamp, there was an old shed that was breaking down. And let's say that that alligator ate my father. First, I would record my feelings and perceptions as myself within the dream, Teal. Then I would switch my perspective to becoming the swamp itself. Perhaps the perceptions and feelings might be something like this. I am the swamp. I am ancient and full of sorrow. I am lonely and people are repulsed by me, and I want Teal to wade in my waters. The alligator is my only companion, etc. Then I'd switch my perspective to the perspective of the shed and state my perceptions and feelings. Then I'd be the alligator, then I'd be my father being eaten, etc., etc. You do this with as many elements as you can to form the whole picture, and see how this changes your perception of the dream. Every aspect of the dream is an expression of yourself and how you're perceiving life. Another way of saying this is, every aspect of a dream is in fact the dreamer. There is no wrong way to do this. This is an exploration of the subconscious mind, and doing this allows us to re-own the fractured or split off aspects of ourselves. If you want to dream about something specific, you can do that. All you need to do is to set a timer and focus on whatever it is you want to dream about for 5 minutes straight. And then what you want to do is to say to yourself, I want to dream about fill in the blank with whatever it is. This type of dreaming, intentional dreaming, is actually to blame for many, many inventions that have taken place on this planet. You can do this with questions you want an answer to as well. Dreams are an invaluable aspect of our lives. They're a window to our subconscious realities, to our inner worlds. They're a way for us to gain progression and also to become more conscious. And every single one of us dreams, regardless of whether we're aware of it or not. In fact, an unfinished dream is called life. Have a good week. Hello, everyone. Before we come into this life, we begin with a core intention. We intend to experience this thing that we intend to experience. And that is what creates the chain of events leading to our physical life. Without this intention, this pre-birth intention, we would not even come into life. Life could not exist. This is the reason that we choose the parents that we do. It's the reason we choose the astrological alignment that we do. And even though it might be true that you came into life to experience a great many things, all of those things you intended to experience were branches coming off of this one root core experience that you wanted to experience. What I want to help you to do today is to find out what that core experience you intended to experience in this life is. And you're going to experience what that core desire, that core intention is, by finding the core imprint or the core contrast that you chose to come into. Let's say that the experience that we intend for this life is to experience unconditional love. Like all things, you can't experience something without also experiencing its opposite. You can't understand white unless you experience black. So what you do if you came to experience unconditional love is to thrust yourself into an environment where love is conditional, where you're rejected even. We experience this opposite vibration from unconditional love as a feeling signature to be exact. This feeling signature is like a specific flavor in the form of emotion and sensation. Our soul comprehends perception in terms of these feeling signatures, not mental concepts. The time-space reality we are currently experiencing is one of contrast. It is a dimension of duality. We come into this contrasting experience of life on Earth in order to experience the black so then we can know and experience white. So we choose into very specific conditions in order to experience the opposite of our ultimate desire for this life, knowing that the experience of its opposite will give rise to awareness and experience of it. When we experience its opposite, we feel it, even if we do not understand it at first. The feeling signature of this opposite of what you intended to experience in this life. This becomes your core negative imprint. And your core negative imprint is the root around what your whole life grows from. It's what you came into this life to transform in this incarnation. In other words, it's your main purpose for life to use the contrast of that particular negative feeling signature to find and become its opposite. Once you have adopted this core negative imprint for the remainder of your life until that vibration is integrated, it will continue to reflect itself out again and again and again, primarily in your relationships. Because relationships provide the meat of the contrast of our experience here on Earth. So you will continue to think that you're getting into different relationships with different people and having different problems. But that's because you're not recognizing the feeling signature that is in fact the exact same in each one of these relationships. It's the one that keeps repeating. This core feeling signature keeps repeating itself as if crying for integration over and over like a skipping CD. If we want our relationships to be different, we must recognize this core imprint. We must become aware of its role in our soul progression. We must use it to find out what we are doing here. If you already think you know what your core imprint is and thus your core purpose for this life, suspend judgment. I tend to be someone who prides myself on being super self-aware. But when I went into the feeling vibration of my core imprint, I was surprised at what I found. I had assumed it would be freedom. After all, I've experienced so much powerlessness, so much captivity in my life. But what I found is that my very core imprint was actually the vibration of forsaken. What I found is that my life purpose here, by default, being the opposite of that thing, is reclamation. Now it makes sense. Looking over the course of my life, even my career, my whole life has been dedicated in the movement towards reclamation. I now teach people how to reclaim themselves, how to reclaim their relationship with their higher self, how to reclaim their relationship with Source. Everything makes sense now that I know my purpose. So suspend judgment for a while and go through this process. You might just be surprised what you find. Our purpose for this life will almost always feel like the very hardest thing for us to align with. Because for us to experience that thing, we have to first immerse ourselves entirely in its opposite. And it's hard for someone who, say, has experienced being forsaken all their lives to suddenly experience reclamation. Reclamation seems like an impossible dream to someone who's felt forsaken all their life. That's why your purpose feels so hard and so out of reach. Nonetheless, our original intention for this life is a desire we cannot deny, and so despite that perceived difficulty, we will be moving forever in the direction of this experience that we intend to have, no matter what gets in our way, until we either reset back to Source perspective by dying, or manifest it in this life. To find this core imprint, we begin like any other meditation, by observing our breath, by calming the mind, focusing it, so that our thoughts are not taking us out of the present moment. Once we feel our mind quieting, then we survey all of our previous significant relationships, the ones where you really felt like there was love there. And I want you to think about these relationships going south and ending. I want you to think about what it felt like when they went badly. Dive into the experience of these relationships beginning to sour, failing, and ending. And I want you to ask yourself this question: what did I feel after they ended? Notice that no matter the circumstances or who you were with, the feeling is exactly the same. Just feel this feeling. Right now, you may not have a word to describe this feeling, but I want you to experience this all too familiar feeling that has been carrying itself, reflecting all throughout your life. Feel its sensations within your body, observe it, and fully experience it. I will warn you in advance that this particular feeling might be the most excruciating feeling that you have ever tried to be present with. When I first did this, it felt a bit like my skin was being burnt off of my bones. So I don't want you to think that this is going to be an enjoyable experience, but it is going to be the key to you finding your purpose. When you feel as if you spent enough time with this emotion, or more specifically, when you feel as if you have surrendered to it completely, I want you to ask yourself, when was the first time that I felt this feeling? You may or may not get images. You may get memories, or you may get no kind of visual stimulus of any kind as a result of that particular question. That's okay. I want you to realize that whatever comes up is what's meant to come up for you. You may only have an intensification of that particular feeling, for example, without any context. Remain with that feeling. Observe those images if you get any, or if you're recalling any memories, a bit like you'd be watching a movie. Then I want you to ask yourself, how do I feel? Be patient with this process. Allow your soul to offer it up to you, a bit like a bubble rising up from the depths of the water. Don't go looking for it. Now, when you ask yourself, how do I feel? I want you to make sure that it's worded like this. I feel blank, not I feel like blank. To say I feel like means that you're conceptualizing of a feeling instead of truly feeling it. For example, I feel destitute is different than I feel like I have no money. One's a conceptualization, the other is a true feeling. We are looking for the true feeling. For some of you, you will be able to identify that feeling immediately. For others, it may be helpful to get a huge list of emotions, and when you feel that emotion intensely within you, to look over that list and see if you can pinpoint the word that best describes that particular feeling. If you feel ready, you can apply my emotional body process to this feeling at this point with the intention of welcoming and integrating this particular feeling signature. To remind yourself of that process, watch my video titled Healing the Emotional Body on YouTube. Now, with the knowledge of this negative core imprint, I want you to look back consciously at your life. See how it is the most familiar frequency you have experienced in this life, and use that to become aware of its opposite. Use that to become aware of what it is that you might be doing here on Earth. Keep in mind that what people consider to be the opposite of something isn't necessarily the opposite of something. For example, though traditionally the opposite of panic is seen as calm, the opposite of your feeling of panic might actually be trust. Another good way of doing this is to type in the word that you chose for what that negative core imprint is, and look at what the antonym of that particular word is. Another thing to do, once you figure out one of those antonym words, is to put that particular antonym into a thesaurus. And you'll see other words that represent that same kind of feeling. And you will pinpoint the one which feels like the opposite vibration from your core imprint. This opposite vibration is, in fact, your life's purpose. However, your what am I supposed to be doing with this life definition of purpose will almost always fit into this model of your core negative imprint and thus core negative intention for this life. The best example of this can be seen in the movie Stranger Than Fiction. The character played by Maggie Gyllenhaal. She plays a bakery shop owner. Now, the main character of this movie, played by Will Ferrell, is surprised to find out that this bakery shop owner, in fact, went to Harvard Law School. She went to law school because she wanted to make a difference in this world. She wanted to make the world a better place. And when she was attending studying sessions for Harvard Law School, she decided to start making things to bring into these study sessions. She started baking. And after a few months, she found out that she was doing a lot more baking than she was doing school. So much so that she ended up failing out. And so she dropped out of Harvard. And she decided that if she was going to make the world a better place, she would do it with cookies. The point being that if you examined her core imprint and the vibration she intended to experience in this life, something like kinship, owning a bakery shop facilitated this intention and thus fulfilled her purpose for this life much more so than a Harvard Law degree did. The feeling signature of this core negative imprint is the ultimate thing we have come into this particular life to overcome because it is the core vibration preventing us from experiencing unconditional love. This exercise is an exercise in awareness more so than anything else. Becoming aware of your core negative imprint and thus your core intention for this life is the first step to integrating this particular feeling so that it's not reflecting into your life anymore. And it's the first step towards finding out your true purpose for being on this earth. So get ready for life to make a whole lot more sense and get ready for changes. Have a good week. Commitment is a state of dedication. When we commit to something, we put all of our energy into that thing. The more of our own energy that we give to something, the more committed we are. The thing we have to be aware of is that we're always committed to something. When we think we're committed to something, we're really not committed to it. All that means is that we're committed to something else. It's not possible to not be committed. For example, let's say that somebody doesn't really seem to be very committed to work. Maybe that's because what they're actually committed to is escape or relaxation. But what we have to understand before continuing is we are always committing our energy to something. You can't not commit your energy to something. But whether we're aware of what that something is or not... What can I tell you? Just think about it. Well, it's easy to say when you look at the average physical human that all people have multiple commitments in their life. But what we have to accept is that all people have a primary core commitment. Now, this primary core commitment can also be subconscious. Most of our commitments are. Most of us are not aware of what our actual commitments are. That's why our own actions don't seem to make sense to us, as just to other people. You can think of this core commitment like a core value. It's the principal and primary value that we hold in our life. And we will always act in accordance with this commitment. We have to become aware of our subconscious commitments, especially our core and primary subconscious commitments. If not, it's going to wreak havoc in our life. Because we're always going to act in accordance with it, whether we're aware of it or not. And obviously, unless we're aware of it, we can't consciously commit to it. To give you an example of how a core commitment may wreak havoc in our life, let's imagine... I don't know. I didn't do it. You've just accepted a job. I didn't do it. But let's say that your core commitment in life is to freedom. And the job that you just accepted conflicts with that sense of freedom. Pretty soon what's going to happen is you're going to rebel against the authority of your boss. Everything's going to feel crappy. You're going to begin to sabotage your job until you eventually get fired. All of this because you're not actually aware of your own subconscious commitment, which was to freedom. So obviously, because you weren't aware of that subconscious commitment, you didn't make the right choice of job in the first place. You set yourself up for failure. When we are not aware of our subconscious core commitment, we are so often completely out of alignment with our own integrity. That's why our words don't match our actions. The biggest issue relative to subconscious core commitments is in the sector of relationships. So even though not knowing what your subconscious core commitment is wreaks havoc on all different areas of your life, relationships is where it does the most damage. I'll give you an example of why. If someone does not have a core commitment that directly corresponds with commitment to the relationship and creating harmony with another person, relationships are impossible to maintain. For example, let's say that somebody's core commitment in their life is to a sense of connection or closeness. Obviously, that dovetails with having a relationship and creating a harmonious one. It's one and the same, basically, because one satisfies the other. This is a person who's going to do a lot of work to make the relationship feel harmonious. And it's probably going to work. However, let's say that you've got another person, and their core commitment is to their own personal happiness. They want to feel good no matter what. And right now, it seems like having a relationship would make them happy. But what about the day that that relationship inevitably becomes what relationships are, which is a teacher? What happens the day that it becomes uncomfortable because the relationship is a mirror, basically, for everything in your life? Do you think the commitment is going to be there? Or is the commitment going to be to happiness, which seems to be the opposite of a relationship right now? So, unless the relationship is serving one's sense of happiness, the relationship's gone. Some people have core commitments that are a direct contradiction to harmony in a relationship. This is a disaster in relationships where one person has a core commitment that is in alignment with creating a harmonious relationship, and one person has a core commitment that is completely the opposite. This is a recipe for a relationship where, in order to keep closeness with one person, the other person has to let go of all of their needs and desires. They have to essentially completely comply. They're in a zero-sum game. Now, what a zero-sum game is I win, you lose. This happens so often in the spiritual community. Why? Because in the spiritual community, you have a bunch of people whose needs weren't met by other people. And so what they've decided is that their core commitment is to themselves and their own personal sense of happiness. Now, I know that some of you are even listening to this right now and saying, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it does present serious issues in terms of creating a harmonious relationship. Because what's going to happen? Let's say that you are with a person and you decide your personal happiness is climbing Everest, and you don't care the impact that it has on your wife and children, for example. Then obviously, because it's not a major motivation to create closeness with them, your core commitment is your own personal happiness. For them to stay connected to you, which might be their primary value, they have to just give in and be at the complete mercy of what you want 24 hours a day, or else the relationship is over. Knowing other people's core commitment can make people very, very predictable, which makes a relationship more safe. This actually gives you the upper hand, to tell you the honest truth, because it means that you always know where a person's going to put their priorities. So let's say that you're in a relationship with somebody, or you know somebody in your life whose core value or their core commitment is safety. You know that if they ever get put in a pinch, they're going to choose safety, no matter what that is. If you understand the deep motivation in others, you know exactly what you need to provide in order to be in alignment with them and add to their happiness. You have much more awareness about what the potential danger is also with someone, and thus how to avoid it, or if it's even possible to avoid it, in which case you know what the incompatibility actually is. To discover your core commitment in your life, you have an option. To one side of this option, you can do it for yourself. To the other side, you can have somebody else help you with it. If you choose to do it for yourself, then what you do is you let go of all concepts of what your internal commitment may be. Don't think about what you want it to be. Just drop the concept. You have no idea. Go into this with a blank slate. And then you want to close your eyes. Ask from your soul, as if setting an intention to become your core commitment. Then surrender, as if you were letting your identity be taken over completely by that commitment. What does it feel like in your body? What images do you see? What words do you hear? What feelings do you feel? See if you can define what you are feeling. The second option is you can have somebody else do this. So you can ask somebody in your life who's capable of taking their own mind out of the equation and going in with a blank slate, having no projections about what they think your internal commitment may be, closing their eyes and assuming the energy of your core commitment. Almost like they're being possessed by it. What do they see? What do they hear? What do they feel? Can they put a definition to it? To demonstrate this, I'm going to have Blake try this. He's never done this before, so you're going to basically see how well this works. Ready? What I want you to do, I want you to get rid of all notions of what you might be committed to. Okay. So you don't know it. You're going in with a blank slate. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to ask to become your core commitment in life and see what you feel like. What feelings or sensations or images come up?
Kind of a solidness, or like a focal, really focused.
You feel that?
More than I usually do.
Okay. Focus towards what? If you were to put a word on this primary commitment, what would it be? Do you see any images with this?
Sorry, I'm focused on like the cameras and stuff. One word onto my core focus, my core commitment.
You're the embodiment of your core commitment right now. What does it feel like?
Resolved. It doesn't feel wavery or uncertain at all.
What does it feel like?
Feels stable. Feels.
What are you committed to?
Like a certain thing. Like, what am I committed to?
Yeah, you're the embodiment of what you're committed to right now. Not the embodiment of commitment.
I guess I'm committed to myself. And my own wants.
Okay, so let's say that he does that, right? Now let's have me do it. Ready? Okay, so I choose to become your core commitment. So the first thing I feel is that I have only me. It's like it's me in the world and I always have me, and like that's my only security. So I can see images of myself walking down the street and I feel like I really have me, and like no one else really has me, but I have me. You know what though? I'm committed to being able to go wherever I want and do whatever I want. I can feel that. Like it makes me nervous when I think about somebody coming towards me and trying to get me to do something that they want me to do. I don't like that. My commitment's to what I want to do. I want to be able to float where I want as me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So taking a look at that, that is your core commitment. Right?
Yeah, it sounds completely true.
So do you see how, but like looking through your life, can you see how you've made decisions that are not in accordance with that?
Mm-hmm.
And how well has it gone?
Oh
my God, this just made totally sense. This made total sense. I just had an aha moment just right here and while we're filming this. Okay, so one of the issues that we have with Blake in the community is that we keep telling him, please answer your phone. We need to be in touch with you. Please answer your phone. 15 years of this, and he still doesn't have his phone on him. This is why. Because your actual commitment is to you being able to float and go wherever you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're at the beck and call of somebody else, that's the opposite of your commitment. So you're going to be passive aggressive about it.
Yeah, I lost my phone the other day. It was great.
Okay, so could you see how this would be damaging in your life and career, how you need to be choosing according to this, or even subconsciously deciding, is that really what you want to be committed to?
Rather than just taking it on my own, I've been manipulating in order to get that.
And letting a lot of people down.
Right.
So do you want to be, so this is what you get to think about, and I don't want you to answer right now. You get to think about whether you want that to be your conscious commitment. If so, you have a lot of different choices to make. If not, you got to switch your life up a bit.
If I want this to be my conscious commitment or not?
Because this has been a subconscious commitment.
Okay.
That's why you don't just look at us when we say, Blake, bring your phone. Say, I'm not going to.
Yeah, but well, I mean, if it's I can't really not choose it if it's.
No, you actually can.
I can choose to.
This is what's fun about a subconscious commitment. This is what's fun about a subconscious commitment. Once you become conscious of it, you can choose whether you actually want to commit to it or not. If not, you got to look at where it comes from. Even if so, you got to look at where it comes from.
Right. So if what I've actually been committed to, I don't really agree with, or I don't really want to do that anymore, there's other values in my life that I want to pursue, then I can change that. And
you got to be able to own the consequences of your commitments as well. Like if you're fully committed to work and that's really where your commitment is and you're 100% going to choose that, you got to be aware of what that means for your relationships and the type of relationships, if you're going to have any, that you're going to choose.
Yeah.
Right? You don't choose somebody whose primary commitment is closeness in a relationship. If that's not your primary commitment, you're going to torture that person.
Right.
So it's about making those different decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Once you discover your core commitment, look at your life. See how so much of your life and your relationships make sense now. See if you can figure out why this commitment is so strong. The core commitment usually reflects something traumatic we've experienced. They are reflective of our deepest desires, which come from experiencing what is unwanted or from not having experienced something that we need and want. From here, get rid of your ideas of right and wrong. It doesn't do any good to not commit to something that you actually do want to commit to just because you think it's not okay to do so. Any more than it does any good to commit to something just because you think it's the right thing to do. Decide whether you want to commit to that subconscious commitment you discovered, but consciously this time, and what choices you're going to make differently as a result. See the benefits and consequences of that commitment on each sector of your life. If you do not want to commit to that, become completely aware of why. What is your new commitment going to be? What changes are you going to make in your life in alignment with that new commitment? The things that manifest will always be the things that have the most energy flowing towards them. And the reality is that our core subconscious commitment has too much energy flowing into it to deny. You have to become aware of it. Life is just too painful when you have your subconscious commitment going in one direction and your conscious commitment going in another direction. So try this process out so you can get all of you on board going in the same direction and making the right choices in accordance with that. Have a good week. Some of you will probably laugh at this, but this week I had a complete epiphany. And that's that I was thinking that most people knew something that they didn't know. And knowing that they don't know that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for my capacity to teach people. And what I realize that people don't understand is thoughts. People live with their thoughts all day, every day, without having any idea what the hell they are. This is why so many of us either don't value our thoughts at all or put so much value to them that we believe that they're 100% true. Now, here's what I'm about to tell you that most people don't understand about thoughts. Thought is a sense. It's a sense just like every other one of your 5 senses. Just like sight, just like hearing, just like taste, just like touch, just like feeling. Thought is a sense. You could, in fact, think of thought as the actual 6th sense, and as intuition being any time that any faculty of sense has the capacity to perceive something that exists beyond the physical dimension. A sense is essentially a faculty by which a being perceives external stimulus. It is reactive in nature. What makes thought so confusing is that we don't perceive ourselves to be perceiving thoughts. We perceive our thoughts to be solely our own creation. This would be similar to perceiving that we are always the creator of every sound that we hear in the world, or that we are the creator of the sensation of burning when we touch a hot stove. Thinking that every thought is our own is one reason that we believe every thought we have is true and become so attached to them that we are overpowered by them completely. Thought is an observational response to an external stimulus, just like every other sense that we have. We can observe a thought in the same way that we can perceive a smell coming from something nearby in our environment. It works in exactly the same way. Now, the reason that we can become conscious of ourselves is because, and only because, we can sense ourselves. Now, doesn't that tell you a lot about self-awareness? Most people are not walking the planet with a priority being to be able to sense themselves. So they don't know themselves very much. We know ourselves and are authentic only to the degree that we can sense ourselves. Thoughts differentiate. They bring definition to the quantum field, so to speak. The universe is energy, and energy vibrating in different ways. The universe can be seen as a seamless sea of vibrations, and every stimulus that can possibly be sensed in the universe is a vibration. So this is how it goes. Since the first thought that was ever created in this universe, every successive thought has been a reaction to that original thought or one of the byproducts of that original thought. It is possible for the energy of our consciousness to formulate thoughts in the same way that our body formulates the sensation of hot when we touch something hot. And we can formulate thoughts in response to other thoughts, not just things in the world. One of the examples I like using the best is, let's say that you're driving your car onto a really high bridge, like Golden Gate Bridge or something like that. So many people have been crossing that bridge, perceiving and even we could say creating these thoughts that coincide with driving one's car straight off the bridge, thoughts that resonate to the frequency of terror. And when somebody drives through that path, I actually watch them coalescing with these thoughts, bringing them in and perceiving them, and suddenly going on an endless spiral of thought about a car crash. You are walking through the world perceiving thoughts that are not even necessarily, quote unquote, yours. This is why it is perhaps the most valuable to think of thoughts in terms of them just arising. They arise across the canvas of what we call the mind, which is just your capacity to perceive them. This universe is governed by the law of attraction. What that means in a very simple way is that things of like frequency attract one another, kind of like magnetism. And when you think a thought, if you put any energy into it, I mean really it takes almost no energy at all, it begins to attract other thoughts. So one thought leads to the next thought, leads to the next thought, and in this physical dimension, we perceive that coalescing as a linear chain of thought. But because this chain of thinking that is inspired by some sort of stimulus somewhere takes place in our own minds, we perceive it to not be external to us. We perceive the thoughts to be our own. Most of our senses are tailored to the physical dimension so that we can navigate and differentiate in this learning hologram called life on Earth. But every sense has the capacity to expand wide enough to begin to perceive things that exist beyond the range of our physical dimensional reality. Anybody who's been on the path of awakening a long time can attest to the fact that part of awakening is your senses expanding. So you start to begin to taste color. You start to begin to see sound. You start to perceive things like the future that aren't part of your current timeline. These things, this phenomena, occurs because our senses have widened to something that already exists. For seers and fortune tellers, they perceive thoughts consciously that resonate at a frequency well beyond the physical dimension, where time does not exist. Mediums hear things well beyond the physical dimension, which is why they can talk to dead relatives. But even people who are not particularly open in terms of perceptual capacities often perceive thoughts that are not theirs and are not a response to something physical. I love this example of an agent who shows their client houses. Now, this person could be a really closed down person, not somebody who senses a whole lot. Now, let's say that you're going to sell them or are trying to sell them a house where a really unhappy marriage took place and ended in a conflict style divorce. Chances are that person's going to walk in the house, and even if that's the house that makes the most sense for them to buy in a rational manner, they won't even know why really they don't like that house, but suddenly they'll go into that house and start thinking thoughts that are around loneliness, being trapped, stuck, feeling miserably unhappy, and they won't know why. Because thoughts are just that, they're a reaction. You can see them just like the reaction that takes place in any other sense that you have. And feelings are most responsive to thought, and thus your emotional faculty reacts immediately to the thought that it comes into contact with. To become conscious of this chain reaction, next time you find yourself engaged in a chain of thought, stop yourself for a moment and backtrack. See if you can trace those thoughts or that chain of thoughts all the way back to whatever stimulated that thought. What you will notice is this is always how it happens. Something that you encounter, whether it's a thought or a thing, triggers this chain reaction of thought until you reach another stimulus, which sets you on a whole different track of chain of thought. Before we move on, I'm going to complicate things a tiny bit and say that at the second to the highest dimensional reality in this planet, all is one, not just planet universe. Now, coming from that place where all is one, it's easy to see that every thought that has ever been thought or will ever be thought or is currently being thought is technically your thought. But here in the physical dimension, you perceive yourself to be separate from other things in the world, and it is at this dimension that we can talk about the fact that you're perceiving thoughts that are not even your own. We can also go further. In this dimensional field, you are not your thoughts any more than you are your hearing or your sight. They are simply capacities that you have. The very fact that you can witness your own thoughts means that you are obviously not the same as your thoughts, any more than just because you can smell a smell, you are the same as the smell. It's your capacity to perceive. So essentially, your thinking, or any other sense that you have, is a capacity that is held by what you truly are. At this lower dimensional level in the universe, even if you are the creator of the music and the perceiver of the music, you would not look at the music and confuse it as yourself. And if you are more than your thoughts, you have the capacity to use them and influence them. You can use your free will to focus, and by doing so, have influence over whatever it is that you are perceiving. Another way of saying this is, you have the capacity to use your free will to engage with a certain stimulus that's going to trigger a certain chain of thinking. When thoughts arise, you can choose to focus on them and then feed them with your energy and amplify the momentum of this attraction process that is happening to the thoughts, or you also have the choice to simply let them pass. It's almost like choosing which thoughts to engage with. But all of us have experienced this thing where our consciousness seems to fixate on a thought, and there's so much interest on behalf of our mind in that thought. It's almost like it doesn't matter what we're trying to do with our focus. It's pulling us there like gravity. You can guarantee if this is the case, then the focusing on that thought is key to our own expansion in some way. We have some kind of awareness to gain from that focus. Just like any other sense, the conscious witnessing of what we are perceiving can awaken us to the truth of this universe. It is so common, especially in the spiritual field, that the mind is made into an enemy of awakening, when in fact, it can also be part of the mechanism of awakening. Any sense can limit you, and any sense can be what sets you free. For this reason, I highly encourage you to watch my video titled, Is Your Mind Your Friend or Foe? It is important that along with our awareness that comes as a result of this particular sense of ours, that we also spend time focusing on doing with this sense what we do with our other senses, and that is to please it. Now, what do most of us do? We buy perfumes to please our sense of smell. We eat delicious food to please our sense of taste. What most of us don't think about is deliberately introducing stimulus that our mind or thought finds pleasant. When we do this, we nourish ourselves and maintain our well-being, as opposed to doing this to escape from thoughts that are unpleasant. A lot of people are confused about positive thinking. I want to give you this view on it. If you're using positive thinking to try to get away from a negative perception that you're having, that's similar to going to sleep on a pile of dog poop, but because you don't like the smell, spraying it in perfume, but then convincing yourself that you're sleeping somewhere hygienic. The smell is telling you you have something to clean up. We can get ourselves in a hell of a lot of trouble when we don't use our senses in this way, and instead use positive focus to escape away from them. It's a completely different energy and frequency when we are introducing a positive stimulus to our thought process simply as a way of offering ourselves pleasure. Our senses tell us so much about ourselves and about the world around us. They provide so much value. It is possible to use thoughts to escape from awareness, but it's also possible to use thoughts to enhance awareness. If we touch something hot, we know to take our hand off the stove. If we taste something bitter, we spit it out. If we think a thought that causes us to feel pain, we have the capacity to figure out what stimulated it and make changes either to our angle of perception or to the circumstance itself that is serving as the stimulus for those thoughts. This is what meditation seeks to do, in fact. Meditation is like purifying your sense that is your thought. So it seeks to stop the momentum of the chain of thoughts. It seeks to help you to give rise to creative new thought. It allows us to become aware of the origin of certain thoughts, as well as what to do with the awareness we gain to the thoughts we are perceiving. It allows us to discern thoughts that resonate at the frequency of truth and those which resonate at the frequency of illusion. Because thought is a sense, we need to treat thought with as much care and discernment as we do our other senses. Our senses can tell us great truth. Our senses can also be fooled. Our senses can be limited. Our senses can lead us to awakening. Given that thought is a sense, we could write whole books on this subject. I could lead you into the implications of this awareness within the human race for centuries. But rather than do that and get in the way of your own awakening, I simply am going to leave you with the understanding that thought is a sense and see if you can come up with the implications. So I'm going to leave you today with a question. If I accepted that thought was a sense just like every other one of my 5 senses, what would be different for me? How would my life change? Have a good week. When it comes to success and happiness, nothing is more important than being in the flow. Being in the flow is one of those catchphrases that you hear floating around society, but most people have no idea what the hell that means or how to be in the flow. Today, I'm going to clear that up for you completely. To get your mind on board with this talk, I want you to imagine that your soul is like a current of energy water that is flowing from a higher dimension into the physical dimension. Just like a current of river, it has momentum to it as it flows down here into the physical dimension. Your physical self that you call by your name was in essence a thought created by your soul. It is a second point of perspective, and it has free will. Because of that free will, the you that you call by your name in this life can consciously and more often than that unconsciously choose to think and say and do things that cause you to go with your soul's current, or to think and say and do things that cause you to go against that soul current. When we are going with that current, it is said that we are in alignment. When we go against that current, it is said that we are out of alignment. When we are going with the current, we know it because of the way that we feel. It feels to us internally like the sensation of relief. It feels the same as being in a very strong stream of water where you're fighting against the current to the point of exhaustion, and then you let go and you let the current take you, imagining that this current was taking you in the direction of everything you wanted. This emotionally translates in our bodies as things like inspiration, excitement, joy, passion, and appreciation. We then say, we are in the flow. When we are going against the current, we also know it because of the way that we feel. It will feel internally like resistance and tension. This emotionally translates in our bodies as things like feeling stuck, frustrated, powerless, depressed, anxious, or other painful emotional states. It can literally be compared to facing upstream against a very powerful river. If any of you have done that, you know that it ends up exhausting you, stressing you out, and in some cases, drowning you. So let me give you an example. Let's say that your soul's intention before coming to this life on earth was to be a teacher. Now let's say, though, that you encounter parents growing up who say, you have to do something that can get you respected, and the only things that get you respected are jobs that pay a lot of money. So thinking that thought, which is against the stream of the current of your own soul, you will most likely take actions like going to law school. Now, passing the bar exam is going to be 50 times harder for you than it is for, say, somebody else who's in alignment with their soul when they're going to school to be a lawyer. So it's going to be a lot of effort. You're going to be miserable. It's going to pull you in the opposite direction of the current of your own stream of energy. And as a result, you're going to feel negative emotion. Being in the flow also relates to things in the external world. Everything in the world essentially has its own current of energy. So you're interacting with those other currents all day long. Being in the flow in the world is about aligning your own internal current to the currents that are around you. For example, let's say the weather decides to create a hurricane. It's not then possible for you to be in the flow if you continue to push against that and demand for an outdoor wedding to take place despite that fact. You would then be fighting against the external current that exists, and this always ends very badly. So staying in the flow requires a readjustment so you can be in alignment with your own flow in the direction of your own desires, while not going against those of others. Relationships are essentially all about this. It's about a person staying in alignment with themselves, as well as staying in alignment with the other person. Being in the flow, which is also referred to as being in the zone when it comes to performing activities, causes us to enter a physiological and physical state where when we are doing something, we're completely present with it instead of divided in any way. There are no contradictory energies interfering with the flow of our focus, either internally or externally. Nothing is preventing us. We feel focused, completely energized, and in full enjoyment of the process of the activity. It takes almost no effort to do that thing, and our productivity goes through the roof. The energy that we extend towards that thing feels good and fulfilling instead of depleting. It's as if doing the thing in and of itself renews you. When we are in this state, it is almost like our soul is saying, yes, this is what I came here for. The most successful people in this world have managed to think and say and do things which cause them to be so much so in alignment that they have the energy, the current of their own soul and the universe at large backing every action that they take. So now that you understand the basic dynamic that is occurring within the state of flow, how do you get in the flow? Number one, the single most important thing you will ever do to get in the flow is to prioritize how you feel above every other thing on earth. Do not take a single action until you are in alignment on an emotional level. Your emotions will always, without fail, tell you whether you are in the flow, in a state of alignment, or not. If you feel any of that resistance, you have to get to a state of relief before you take any action. Otherwise, that action will yield undesirable results. And you will be working 400 times as hard for this much outcome. I am literally telling you this today. The most successful people on this planet, this is what they decide to do. I'm going to give you an example from my own life. When I'm writing one of these Ask Teal episodes, I refuse to write one unless I really want to. If I don't feel the inspiration, I literally won't do it. So what I do is I give myself an entire week, knowing that on one of those days, I will write the episode. If I wake up and I don't want to, I will not touch my computer. This same principle applies to my events, not just relative to myself, relative to other people. Everyone on my team knows this, that if there's a lick of resistance, I will stop everything in order to focus on what the issue is and create resolve so that all members of the team have their energy flowing in the direction of an event. This is how to pull off an event where there's no contradictory energies going into the event, and that creates instantaneous success. 2, get a handle on what you desire. Desire is what creates the momentum of the stream of energy that you can either turn against or go with. And it works 100 times better if you're aware of your desire and thus going in the direction of it. The one thing you have to accept is this universe knows what you desire, often better than you do. The more conscious we are of what we desire, the less we interfere with the current of energy. The more that we can understand that the universe is actually on board with our desire and thus that current of energy, the more that we can trust that if something changes or falls through, it's actually taking us in the direction of our desires instead of against it. So many of us are not living in the flow simply because we're too terrified to follow our desires. We don't get on board with them. We may know that we want to be a musician, but we take a job we freaking hate anyways. It is impossible to be in the flow if you're not in alignment with your own desires. 3, we need to become aware of and integrate our own fragmentation. One of the reasons it's almost impossible for people in today's world to live in the flow is because their own consciousness has broken into so many different parts. As if it's not bad enough that we turn against the stream of the current of our own soul. Our own perspective that does the turning against also fragments into several different parts. So the you that you call by your name is not just one individual, it's many. And many have contradictory ideas. For example, one part of us wants to be on stage, another wants to hide. One part of us wants a relationship, the other hates people. Noticing contradictory energies, whether they come from inside or outside, is the best way to identify that you're not currently in the flow. These contradictory energies within us creates a horrible condition, which is the opposite of being in the flow. I'm going to give you an analogy. Imagine that you're in a boat and you're in a stream of water. And some people in this boat are paddling upstream and some are paddling downstream. The boat's going to turn in circles. It's going to get stuck. It's going to move forward kind of. Then it's going to go upstream. That's the life that we are living relative to the flow when we have contradictory energies occurring within us. We have to get these contradictory and polarized energies within us to a place where they can align and agree upon a singular direction. To understand this concept in depth, I want you to watch my video titled Fragmentation, the Worldwide Disease. 4, be like a fish in the ocean currents. In reality, all beings in this universe are part of a larger organism. So you can see the universe is itself as one organism, and we are a part of that organism. All things are connected. Naturally, as a result of that truth, responsiveness to other parts of us is a natural part of this universe. But most of us are not very responsive. Most people think they are above the need to be responsive. When conditions change, they don't want to change with it. They want to be independent agents. When we are doing this, we're a bit like a fish that has decided upon a course of action. So we swim in that direction. And when we encounter a shark, because we previously made the plan to go that way, we continue swimming. The topic of commitment is something else entirely. I want you to take that concept and just put it to the side today, because people who avoid commitment, that's a separate conversation. Today, we're going to talk about the people who are so committed to their own way of being that they're not responsive to any energies within the universe, and that makes it impossible to be in a state of flow. Our number one priority and commitment needs to be to staying in alignment with ourselves, staying in alignment with the people around us. That is what will create success for us in this universe. But this requires flexibility. It requires us to be able to change with the tides. To be truly successful, you must be able to change your plans at a moment's notice so that you are always working with your own internal current, with the currents of other people, and with the currents of the universe at large, instead of against any one of these currents. To be in alignment with yourself, with other people, and with the universe at large, you have to be able to stop dead in your tracks, reevaluate, and completely change course at a moment's notice. This is exalted spontaneity. Now, many people in the world get very nervous at this because they know that being spontaneous in this way adds an element of unpredictability and uncertainty to the equation. But they are actually in unsafety. The safety that we actually do have is responsiveness. Otherwise, we are literally that fish swimming in the direction of a shark. You are connected to everything in this universe. Everything is interdependent, and so responding to the shifts in those currents is responding to your own current. So there's actually no contradiction there. We are part of something bigger than ourselves. 5, act fast on inspiration. This is another one of the major mistakes people make when they are not living in the flow. They take too long to act on inspiration. This is a little bit like a surfer who's sitting in the water and a giant wave comes and he sits there and sits there and sits there and waits for it to pass and then goes, maybe I should get up, and now there's no momentum. You have 5 seconds. 5 seconds. When you have an inspiration to take your first action, doesn't matter whether it's writing something down or taking some other action. 5 seconds is what you have to do that. And people who are very successful, they become adept at doing that. They get up on the wave as fast as it hits them, and they ride it all the way through to the completion of the task, instead of allowing themselves to become totally distracted by other things. It's with single focus, riding the wave, and letting it pull you all the way to the completion of the project. 6, practice being completely present. When you use your focus to come into your body and into the moment that you're in, you are focusing that very strong stream of energy into your physical embodiment. This makes it so that every action you take is backed by 10 times the energy. This way of doing things is best seen through the analogy of an athlete. I want you to imagine an athlete who's completely in the game. He loves what he's doing, and so all of the energy is flowing into this moment. Nothing outside this moment exists. He's completely engaged in it. Now imagine that same athlete, but this time he's stressing, on top of acting here in the present, he's stressing about whether he's going to stay with his wife or not. Or imagine an athlete who's thinking about whether he's going to win or lose. You can see that actually robs energy from his physical embodiment. And when there's not as much energy flowing into your physical embodiment in the here and now where you're completely present, all of your actions are not backed by universal energy, and so it will take 10 times the effort to do something that another person backed by universal energy would feel like takes no effort. The same principle applies to relationships. If we are in the room with someone, we need to be fully there with them and immersed with them. If we cannot be, we need to address any resistance that's preventing us from doing so that we can be fully present. In this state, All doing naturally arises as a result of being, and the doing is therefore much more powerful and effective. 7. Become familiar with the sensation, the feeling of rightness within your being. Now, this is very distinct from the idea of what's right. We can have an idea that something's right, when in reality, when we're really honest with ourselves, it feels completely freaking wrong. Now, I know that all of you have watched these movies where it's obvious that someone's making a huge freaking mistake, but they're doing what they think is right. My favorite example of this is, I'm going to have to break up with them. We shouldn't be together anymore. And you can tell that internally, everything in them is screaming, no! That person's not in the flow. The feeling of rightness is like an internal yes without the contradiction of an internal no somewhere. It will feel expansive. It will feel like relief. It says to us, I don't necessarily know why this thing feels right, but it just does. Keep following that feeling of rightness. 8. The road marker or cairn for flow is synchronicity. Now, what is synchronicity exactly? Synchronicity is a meaningful occurrence that cannot be explained through cause and effect. You cannot do anything to directly cause synchronicity to happen, and yet it does so to meet our needs. It is in these moments that you can see the interconnectedness between your own flow and the flow of the universe at large. I'll give you an example of a synchronicity. There's so many, it's absolutely ridiculous, but here's one. Let's say that somebody you know is suffering from cancer and it's stressing you out a lot, and you just so happen to sit on the airplane next to a person whose entire specialty in life is alternative remedies for solving cancer. Synchronicity often shows up as fortuitous events. Notice and follow synchronicities. They mean you are in the flow. Flow allows you to be in the right place at the right time. It allows you to feel good and act at the exact right time and to act in alignment with universal timing. I will warn you, once you start living in the flow, synchronicities will not be that rare. In fact, your entire life will be nothing but a series of them. 9. Meditate daily or do some kind of introspective activity with no distractions whatsoever. So many of us do not know what our internal flow is doing, whether we're in alignment or not, because we are so externally focused. We're caught up in doing, we're following our task lists, we're suppressing our emotional state, and so the last thing we're doing is coming into alignment with ourselves. This is what meditation and introspective exercises are created for. When you start to tune into this on a regular daily basis, these subtle energies within you where you're like, wow, yeah, I guess I was feeling not so good, will feel like freaking tsunamis. It gets to the point when you live in the flow or when people say, oh my gosh, that's really subtle. You're like, oh my God, not subtle at all. You're just not used to feeling it. Most of the people in society today are living and taking actions and saying and thinking and doing things that are completely out of alignment with themselves, and they have no idea. So when they get sick and things like that happen, they go, I don't know what happened. Introspective tools of any kind are the best arsenal in your bag for coming into alignment with yourself. 10. Accept that getting into the flow is not something that you do and then it's done. It is something that you will be doing for the rest of your life. There will never be a day where your life won't be about coming into alignment with yourself, coming into alignment with yourself, coming into alignment with other people, coming into alignment with the universe at large, coming into alignment with yourself. That is literally your lifelong practice. Like a current. Everything is constantly in motion in this universe, constantly changing, constantly mutating. Nothing is static ever. Every moment of the day is an opportunity to be in the flow or out of the flow with yourself and other things. The waves never stop coming. Desires never stop arising. Conditions never stop changing. Self-discovery and increasing awareness never ceases. So being in the flow is not something you can ever stop. It's like surfing. Somebody who's a surfer never stops riding waves. They never stop having to adjust to the currents. But what happens is over time, it becomes second nature. They become so incredibly adept to feeling every single one of these currents that's going on that they become adept at coming into alignment with it and riding it. That is what your life is going to be like if you commit to being in flow. 11. Follow your joy. How you feel matters more than anything else on this earth. Following your joy is the North Star of being in the flow. This means think thoughts and speak words and take actions in the direction of your personal joy. Your purpose on this earth, in this life, cannot be separate from your joy. It is a vibrational impossibility because of the way that this time-space reality and life itself is designed. Therefore, the way to find your purpose and stay in alignment, not just with yourself, but with every current that exists in the external world, is to follow your joy. It is worth every risk that you could ever take. I cannot tell you how successful and how feel good and how in alignment your life can be if you prioritize being in the flow and make an absolute practice of it. Every video that I ever have created or ever will create is designed to help you try to come into alignment so that you are in the flow. Now, this is the point at which I tell you, by committing to coming into the flow, you will discover the highest truth of your physical life, which is that you were meant to live your dreams. It's your birthright. Good beat. Hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. My name is Julie. My question is, sorry, I'm super nervous. How do I stop putting productivity in charge of my self-worth?
You just nailed that one out of the park, didn't you? Well, are you aware of where that comes from first?
Well, my parents.
Well, always. It's the one thing the psychologist got right.
Just like the way I grew up in a very strict, like, Asian household where they just, like, you have to get things done. There's no time to, like, cry or, like, be upset about anything. Like, go, go, go. And my mom is like that. She's a very go, go, go person.
Well, yes, it seems to be like a disease that goes through generations, isn't it? Okay, so what would happen if you didn't? This is what I need you to become conscious of. Most of us, it's almost like the consequences in our life we're trying to avoid are abstract. We've got to stop with the abstract. We got to know what monster we're actually running away from. So pretend you are not productive. What happens?
I would fail, and I feel like there just wouldn't be point for me to exist anyway.
You're still not looking at the monster. Make it tangible, okay? So, do you want to be back in your parents' house for this? Okay, I'm in my parents' house. I stopped producing anything. No productivity. You don't get out of bed. What does it look like? What does non-productivity look like? Play this game with yourselves too if you've got this issue.
Getting in trouble. With my parents not getting any attention.
Okay, what does getting in trouble look like?
Like getting yelled at. like punishment.
What kinds of punishment?
Like physical punishment.
Did it stop working? Blake, someone. What she said is physical punishment.
Also, putting, like, being isolated in a room, I guess, like in my room.
So you're isolated, and you're also, so what does it feel like when somebody's mad at you? When you're in trouble?
Like there's something wrong with me, like I did something wrong.
Very good. You just hit the nail on the head. I can't live with me. Not only am I isolated, so I'm only with me, I hate me. Because you think your parents are right about you. So it's shame that you're trying to run away from. And the inevitable isolation of shame.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to explain shame for you guys. Ready? Shame is actually really interesting. Because it is an internal fragmentation. Stand up for me. We're going to do the demo. Okay. Remember how I talked about the fact that separation or fragmentation within the universe is this continuous splitting apart, right? So we're one, right? We're one. Now fragmentation is like a cell dividing. Well, now watch what shame is. Shame is, okay, I begin as one person. And part of me as this one person is, I have anger, right? That's an emotion that people have. Now, if I grow up in a household that shames me for having anger, so anger makes me a bad girl, what's my option? The only way that I can stay close to this person is to not have anger. So I want to push anger away from myself. What's my only way of doing this? Like, some of you got it right. My only way of doing this is to push myself away. But how can I do that? How can I push myself away? On a physical level, you can't really do that, can you? It's not like when you push yourself away, like your body splits in half, right? But your consciousness does. Your internal reality can. So it's almost like your consciousness is more like water, where you can split water into two different streams, right? So my way, when I want to push myself away, which is what shame is, I split my consciousness. Now, this is actually the reason why shame is so painful. This is the reason why you are having a difficult time with non-productivity. Because I'm the part you won't accept. I'm putting you in an interesting position right now. You're the one that pushed me away. By the way, you're watching your internal reality right now. And I'm going to be doing this a lot in the future, so. Oh, I love this. Grab that. You're meeting yourself today. You're the one that pushed me away. Go ahead, have an argument with me. Do you think we like each other right now? No, she pushed me away. I'm the non-productive part of you. I'm the one that just wants to be loved for who I am. I'm freaking sick of this rat race. I'm not doing it anymore. In fact, I'm going to get sick.
Well, I wouldn't have to push you away if you would just get on the wagon.
Do you think I want to be on the wagon with you now?
No. But you have to.
I don't have to do anything. There's no point to living if I have to be on that wagon. Haven't you noticed that nobody likes you there either, and it's not even who you really are?
I don't want to not do anything to make you happy.
Oh, like, see, that's what you think of me?
It feels like majority of me is on this side, and you're the only one who doesn't want to go with the group.
I'm the only one.
That's what it feels like.
So how did I just feel? I'm like dumb appealing to you. I'm just gonna appeal to other people because like you're not fucking listening to me. So
Okay.
I feel lonely. You just made me alone. I'm the only one.
I'm sorry. What do you want to do? Maybe we can meet in the middle.
That's different.
So what do you want to do?
What I want to do. And sometimes it looks like sitting in front of a TV show with ice cream.
Well, we did that the other day. And we stayed up till 5 a.m. So.
Why was that a problem for you? I can tell you what was a problem for me.
Why was it a problem for you?
Because you never sat on the couch. I was the one that sat watching ice cream. Right? You spent the whole time doing what? We shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be on this couch.
True.
We shouldn't be eating this, actually. We really, 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 really should be doing something else. We can do this only if we do something else later. So you were never on the couch.
So you want me on the couch with you?
Yeah, yes, I do.
But I tried.
Yeah, but you didn't actually, though. No.
How do I sit on the couch with you without, like, worrying about what to do next?
Okay, I want you to see. Do you see what's happening here? How many of you have already recognized that this is an internalized relationship with the parents? This is what happens when we fragment ourselves as a result of shame, is we develop an internal relationship between our own consciousness split that mirrors the relationship with the parents exactly. I'm the kid. This is mom and dad. Do you notice the lack of presence? Who's the problem? See, this is the funny part. You haven't recognized you're the problem yet, have you? Look at the audience. Who's the problem? Get aggressive, point at it. Isn't that funny? You don't think you're the problem, but actually everybody else recognizes you as the problem.
So how do I stop?
You got to stop right now and realize you're the problem. If you're the problem, that's the actual reality. You're actually the one that's the problem.
I try to, like, allow you to express yourself a lot. I mean, okay, obviously not a lot, but I sometimes, and I feel like you take too long. Like, it takes you, like, days.
You want to know why?
Because I never let you express yourself?
Yes. No, okay, here's why. Ready? We're out of the rules for 2.5 seconds. Ready? Okay, you're a little kid. I'm mom and dad. You're upset right now, right? Okay, I'll be here for as long as it takes you to feel good. What do I need to do to make you feel good? Come on, we've been doing stuff. I've been sitting here. I'm sitting with you.
Like, be here present.
I am here.
Not really.
Exactly. This is what makes people stuck. You see? Do you understand this? This is why we're stuck. We're stuck because you can't be present so that. Doesn't matter what the end of that sentence is. It doesn't work to be present so that. That's not presence. I'm literally the opposite of present. I'm here hoping you'll change. Oh, that feels just amazing inside. So this is what I'm trying to show you. This part of you that really doesn't want productivity to be everything in life never actually gets any presence at all. It's always got the pressure of, I gotta do something else. Do you feel that?
Yeah. I did one of the exercises where you take the conscious of your like physical ailment, and I always get my lower back injured. So I did that, and I found out that I asked myself, what do you want me to do? And she said that she wants me to meditate, and I have been doing that, but it feels like.
How many of you are seeing the problem? Where are you trying to get? It's like you've got such a prerogative with yourself. It's actually painful. Me being in this aspect of your consciousness, it is torture. It's like everything in you is like, I'm doing all these things so that. What are you trying to get to?
Finish things I have to do. But there's no time. Like, I have to get things done at a certain time.
Close your eyes. I'll let this aspect of your consciousness help you out with what you're not seeing. Ready? Close your eyes and imagine your back is fine, I'm on board, and we finish everything. Can you go there? What does it look like?
Productivity. I feel good. Like, all of me feels good.
Oh, keep going. I want you guys following along with this if you've got the productivity bug. What does it look like? If your life is exactly where you want it to be, or just as productive as you want it to be, you got everything finished, actually. Mom and Dad are happy.
Like peaceful, and it's not like I don't feel rushed.
And then what?
I mean, nothing. It just.
No, so now you can sit on a beach?
Yeah.
You can sit in front of the TV and watch ice cream?
Yeah.
Keep playing it out.
I could, I guess, like, have relationships and stuff.
For how long?
Until I don't feel good.
What happens the day after you get everything done?
I feel good about myself.
How about the day after that?
Still feeling good.
Day after that?
Good. Until
day after that.
Oh. This is after everything's done, right?
Yes.
Okay. I feel really good. Yeah, I feel I want to socialize, do things that like feels good.
Day after that.
Same thing.
Just keep doing this. One more day.
Same thing. I feel good.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Really.
How long is doing nothing gonna last?
Until something has to be done, like a deadline.
And who dictates that?
Who dictates what has to be done? Me.
How long are your parents going to be okay with you watching a TV show after you get everything done?
Not that long. I mean, it has to be, I feel like it has to be reasonable amount of time. Yeah, it has to be reasonable.
I'm using your crystals. Ready? This is the hell of your life. You ready? You can get love and you can get the relaxation and everything you actually want if you accomplish this. You see my hell yet? This is never going to end. That's what I need you to actually get in your body, not just get mentally. Like, I need you to get it in your body. Get it. What did I just show you?
You just showed my relationship with myself, how I constantly have to.
Yeah, it's your relationship with yourself, but it's bigger than that. By the way, what you're describing is a microcosm of the world at large. Welcome to society. What's your hell?
What's my what?
What's your hell?
Constantly having to do things.
Yeah, there will never be an end. There will never be a point at which you're ever good enough. Ever. Never, ever. Ever. Today, it's I'll be good enough if I get there. The minute you get there, it's going to be not good enough. This is what you see. First, it's, you know what? I'll be great once I get $1 million. Okay, now I have $1 million. Now I'm never going to be fulfilled unless I have the perfect wife or the perfect husband. Okay, now I've got that. Well, kind of. Okay, well, now it's not going to be enough unless I become enlightened. And thanks to the fact that I have $1 million, I can go meditate on a freaking submarine for 4 days if I want. Do you see? This is the real rat race. The rat race is about much more than money. It's about the fact that there will never be a single day where it's ever okay to be you. In this moment. And this is the hell that we subject our children to when we never make it okay for them to just be them. When it's bring home A's. Oh, good, now you're going to Dartmouth, right? Oh, good, now you got a really, really stable job, right? There's never a day that we can sit down and say, look, I don't care whether you're sitting on the couch, you're still my kid. You're a doll. Do you see that? I need you to actually realize this. Like you have to consciously realize there will never be a day where you don't have to be productive. It doesn't matter how productive you are. But I need you to really get it. Can you sit and get it here for a minute? Just like really try to get it, okay? Because in your body, you have to feel the hell of it. While I talk to them about something. Ready? I am not about Novocaine spirituality. Most of you who are in this audience already know that. It's probably why you're here instead of it's some damn spiritual place where people are basically telling you that life can be amazing, right? The reason you're here is that I'm going to give it to you straight, and this is how it looks. Ready? To get out of your hell, you're going to have to see it. I wish that, like, if you have your little notebooks, I want you to write that down. I want you to write it down because the process of awakening is going to be really, really shitty sometimes. You have got to see the hell you're in to get out of your hell. Now, what the majority of people are doing on the planet, and unfortunately the majority of the people in my field are doing, is they're trying to paint your prison yellow. They're saying, look, it's not really hell. Just look at it a different way. Now, that type of coping mechanism, which is what it is, I'm sorry, it's a coping mechanism. That coping mechanism will serve you immensely if you're in Auschwitz. Let's say that you've lined up with a situation where you are literally no way out, okay? Yes, you should start that practice. But that's not the case for the majority of people today. For the vast majority of people today, it's just that you haven't realized the hell that you're in because you've been using that coping mechanism since you were children. Ready for me to make childhood even more scary? Childhood is literally a prison, you guys. Now, if you look at childhood, I dare you sometime when you get into your meditative practices, just look at childhood again. It's insane the amount of expansion we're actually getting out of it, especially as a physical human. Because what we're doing is we're coming into this earth premature. We're literally the most relationally dependent creatures you can meet on the planet. I mean, how many of you have seen a horse born? Those things are up in 20 minutes. Peace out, man. We are completely relationally dependent. We put ourselves in prison, is what we did, where you are literally at the mercy of your masters in that prison. You have no empowerment. Powerlessness is such an issue for children. It doesn't matter what place you go to on the planet. Powerlessness is how it feels to be a child, because your life experience is at the mercy of the people around you. And so a common coping mechanism that we use is the same one you would use if you were in Auschwitz. It's, I gotta find a way to make the prison not so miserable. So I'm gonna find a coping mechanism, usually something that fits into the context of denial, that makes it so this hell is not as much of a hell. That's why kids play such an intense game of pretend. You will notice that the happier a child is in their home, the less they play pretend. Did you know that? Little upsetting, I know. The less they play pretend. So if you have a kid who's playing lots and lots of pretend, it means they're trying to escape from their reality instead of do something with their reality. It means that child feels a high degree of powerlessness in the home to actually create something that would feel good instead of to imagine it. And kids are naturally creative. Creativity does not take the form of, I'm pretending I'm in a different reality. Does that make sense? So we pretend our way through life. This is me expanding on this doll complex, right? Because if we have this doll complex, our only way of coping with life is to actually play a game of pretend. Now, that's the horror. Everybody else in our adult life becomes like a doll too, because they're just a player in our own fantasy. This is literally what's happening when you see people go on dates for the first time. They're like, okay, check, check, check. This person will fit into the role that I have in my head for this thing. Now, what happens the minute that they act like them? I don't want this person. My God, they're the exact opposite of what I thought. It's because that person's not fitting into our pretend game that we need to create for ourselves to survive our hell. So, long story short, we have got to awaken to the hell that we're in. And each one of us is actually living a different hell. Awaken to your hell so you can make the changes to your life right now. This is what I want to be teaching the world until the day I die, okay? You did not come here to have to convince yourself that your life is different than it is. Like logos therapy has a limit. You should be creating the life that actually feels good. To do that, you've got to become aware of what doesn't work, which sucks, and we'll hold your hand through it. Okay? You got to see this hell. Do you feel like you see it or no?
Yeah, I kind of feel sad. Like,
you should feel sad.
Like, this sucks.
Yes. See, let's all pause at this moment, because this is the thing. You come into an audience like this, And you expect what? That you should just feel amazing. Really? Like, I want you to actually ask if this is a rational expectation to have of yourself and other people. Is it rational to expect that you should feel good? I mean, I'm having a philosophical debate with you guys kind of right now. Is it a rational expectation where you are in your life right now that you should feel amazing? I'd say hell no. Some of you are in a better place than others, but I mean, even the state of the world that we have created for ourselves, no, is the answer to that question. This is sort of why I liked the movie Matrix, honestly, because it's sort of like, actually look at the reality. Should you be like, everything is awesome? This is an appropriate emotion to feel in response to seeing the reality you're in right now. Now I'm going to tell you why to do this. Ready? The reason to become okay with the fact that this is the reality of how you feel is that this is now your biggest chance to actually feel good. It takes you being in this place of like, I feel freaking really, really, really sad. Because the reality is that I have two parents that have no freaking idea how to love me. It doesn't matter whether they say I love you. If they can't love you for whatever you are in this moment, not your actions, and not the way you inflate their ego by your productivity, then you weren't loved. If you're not collapsed on the floor crying, you see what I mean? That's the reality. But look what happens if she doesn't sit in the sort of sadness of that reality and try to shift that in some way. What does her life look like if she doesn't do that? Do you think she's going to end up in a loving relationship with somebody who just like super appreciates who she is on the couch? This is what it takes to start to recognize people who can't be with you. Does that make sense? And this is really the hell. The hell is that you haven't found that yet. But it takes this sadness to be able to sit in front of someone who has no capacity to actually love you for who you are and to know it. So that you can be like, no. What I choose in my life is people who actually can be there. And that choice point of free will, which is actually a choice point within source consciousness, is what makes it so the next person that comes into your life, it doesn't matter what you do. Could you imagine the relief of that? By seeing this hell, that's where you're actually headed. What would it feel like if you had somebody in your life that was like, just sit down on my lap, in fact. We don't have to be doing anything.
Interesting. I mean, I've never had that, so.
What might it feel like? This is your first pretend game, ready? By the way, when you start to see the opposite of your hell, what you're actually wanting, you're cursed in the best way possible. You can't ever go back from this. I'm going to curse you positively today, ready? I want you to close your eyes and imagine this moment. You get back into this thing where you're panicked about having to get something done. Now imagine the perfect guy, okay? If that's what you want. Is that what you want in your future or no?
Perfect guy?
Yeah. What kind of relationship are you wanting? Friendship, romance? What do you want?
I guess just a relationship, yeah.
But there's like all kinds of different relationships.
We'll go with romance.
Okay, let's go with romance. Guy or girl?
Guy.
Okay, so imagine that you've got this guy in your life. This guy just freaking loves you. Like, it's just being with you. It's not what you're doing. It's not anything about you. It's just like bathing in your essence. Okay? No, you get back into this thing where you're like, oh, I have to do the dishes or I have to do something, right? Imagine he just takes you by the arm and he grabs you and he's like, can you just be with me?
I'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
I would feel special, like.
Exactly. No, let's say that you're sitting on the couch and or you're watching movies. Like, you're not productive. You may even quit your job. Like, you don't have a job. And he comes home and he opens the door and he's like, oh, I love you.
I'm just amazed at the love.
Let yourself feel it. Because right now, like, you're scared to let yourself feel this. We're always terrified to see our heaven as well. Why? Because it means that our hell gets that much more real. I need you to really put yourself in the space of that being your reality. I'll go through it again. Okay, so I want you to imagine you quit your job, okay? You don't have a job. You're not doing anything productive at all. Like, you may just like spend your day doing whatever the hell you feel like doing. Now he opens the door and he sees you. And you're just like the light of his life, just you, your essence, you being there. Now, if you suggest, I think I may want to like go back to work and do all this stuff, right? He's like, but then you won't be with me. Can you just be with me? See, do you feel that feeling? There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to chase. Now, if you want to do something, it's just because you want to, not because it gets you anything. Productivity is our transaction for love. What if it didn't have to be?
I feel like really peaceful.
Exactly. That can be your life. That can be your life. But here's the sad part, ready? If you're the kind of person who continues to do the productivity thing, right? Are you going to line up with that kind of person? No. You're going to line up the kind of people who are like, oh my God, that was amazing what you just did. Do more. So this is the choice point that you're at today. You have to be willing, literally, and it's very painful. It doesn't feel good. You have to literally get to the place where you say no to your own personal hell. It's the choice point where you say, I'm not doing it anymore. And then that puts other people in the choice point. You see, this is how you're actually awakening the world. And this is why children are born to specific parents. I know that many of you in the room related to being the kid who could never find a place to belong because you couldn't conform, right? The universe has set you up, I'm sorry. It's put you in this family as a child to awaken these people. Because if you make a choice point like that, or if you're the one that can't conform, it puts them in a choice point. Now suddenly they're the ones that go, well, am I gonna or am I not gonna now? Now I have to decide. It's like, I mean, how many of you either are gay or have gay friends? Okay, so this, like, everybody goes through this type of experience in their own way. But we can look at the LGBT community for how this works. When a little kid who's from the Midwest in a Christian family says, I'm gay, the universe basically puts that kid in that family to put everyone else in the family in a choice point. Am I going to choose love or am I going to choose not to love? That is my choice now. So it's like you're turning up the heat. And your family needs the heat. Woo! Would you like to know why? Because your hell is the same hell your mother lived, is the same hell your grandmother lived, is the same hell your grandmother's grandmother lived. It's literally an out of control train, just through the generations. When you wake up and you look back, it's, oh my God. That sucker's been going for thousands of years. The only way to get your mother out of that hell is for you to stop the train. As the universe, I personally apologize to the aspect of me that must do this. Look what that does for her, though. You have to see what this does for people. So you don't convince yourself you're hurting everyone, okay? Because that's where you go. I know those of you who are gay and who came out, I'm hurting my family, right? That's the first place you go to. You got to be the one that flips around at the train and says, shh. For your mother to say, now suddenly I have to ask myself about productivity. You can't control what they choose. That's the other hell of this. The other hell of this is that you can't dictate whether a person, when they arrive at the choice point, is going to make one decision or the other. But I can guarantee you, if they don't choose love, that they're going to have another opportunity. More painful next time. We love it when it applies to everyone but us.
So how do I do that? Like, how do I?
You just did it. You saw your hell.
I just that.
Yeah. Oh, you'll see what I mean tomorrow. Do you guys understand what I just did? Okay, there's a teaching in this. Awareness is really the only thing that needs to happen. You may see me give people suggestions about tools to use and things to do up here on stage, but that's not what's actually creating the change. You can't unsee things. That's the curse. The curse is you can't unsee this. Not only did you see the pain that the aspect that you're pushing away from yourself is in, you also saw the hell of being around somebody who only wants you for your productivity. And you also saw the possibility of a relationship that's not like that. So just humor me for a minute. Now that you see that, what's going to happen?
I have no idea.
That's the best thing I've heard. Okay, close your eyes. Tomorrow you get this. This is fun. Close your eyes. Tomorrow you get that hit that says, I have to go do something. When it hits you, what are you going to think?
I have to go do it.
That's all? There won't be a little voice at the back of your head that says, uh-oh, I remember where this is headed.
No. Normally, like, I have these thoughts, like, I have to go do something, like, oh my God, like, I really have to do this now. Like, I gotta hurry up.
I know, but what did you see today?
Like, I just have to do it.
She doesn't realize that she's been cursed yet, trust me. This is the positive curse. You're never going to be able to do it again. It will no longer be possible for you to not be in that mode of productivity. Now, this is not I'm doing something. It's not like she's going to be only happy if she's doing nothing. This productivity race means whenever you're doing something for the sake of being productive,
Oh, it's so cold, man. I gotta take
no
my
longer
bath.
be able to do
I prepared the bath. Oh my God, is this alive? Was this alive the whole time? Holy shit. Okay, so I gotta end this stream. Well, it's been good, guys. I mean, I hope you followed it the whole time. And